Hello, everyone out there in podcast world. Hope you're having a wonderful day. You're listening to or watching the Service Business Mastery Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tersh Blissett. Josh is not with us today. We are actually recording. I'm speaking with Daphne. We are recording on a day that's not our normal recording day. So I'm not blaming Josh for his schedule being booked because he's a busy guy. And this was a very last minute booking. And so my friend Ken Midget, who is with Interplay Learning, a couple years back, I did it. It's probably been 3 years, maybe 4 years ago. I interviewed Ken on the podcast. This is back before Josh was my co-host, and uh, ever since then we've stayed in connection. And one of the things, if you remember about that episode, and I'll link that episode in the show notes as well, that he was teaching at a career academy, and or it might be called something else, but that's what I call it. And so one of his students is Daphne, our guest on today's show, and I'm super excited. He raved about how bright of a student she was, and how she just really is a rock and roll a superstar in her industry. She's a plumber by trade, and she's up in PA, and we're going to talk a little bit about her experiences in the trades, how she got into the trades, and all that good jazz. But Ken asked me if I could get her on the show, and I was absolutely. I told him absolutely. But our schedule is booked out for a long time, so that's the reason. Long story short, that's the reason we're recording on Thursday and not on a Wednesday. But with that being said, I am super excited about today's show, today's episode. If you are listening or watching this live, don't hesitate to leave a question in the chat, and we will answer it live on the live stream. If you're listening to this after the fact, I will make sure that I can, like I said, I'll put the episode from when Ken was on the show in the show notes, and ways that you can reach out to Ken. And he's actually with Interplay Learning, and I don't know if I said that earlier or not, but and so I have great friends over there at Interplay Learning as well, and so that's how we kind of stayed in connection as well, also. But yeah, I'd like to get started with today's show, and I'm super excited. Thank you again, Daphne, for coming on the show.
Are you looking for valuable business advice to reach that 7-figure revenue mark? Do you want actionable tips to properly navigate through every business challenge you encounter along the way? Let Tersh Blissett and Josh Crouch be your guide in getting you to the top here at Service Business Mastery. Tune in as they sit down with world-renowned authors in business, leadership, and personal growth who share valuable insights about management, marketing, pricing, human resources, and so much more. Let their nuggets of wisdom gold guide you in owning a thriving, profitable, and ever-growing business. Here are your hosts, Tersh and Josh.
Welcome to the show, Daphne.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So pronounce your last name for me.
It's Ziegenfus.
Ziegenfus. Okay. I didn't ask you that beforehand, and I definitely was not going to try and pronounce that, because I can barely say my own name. And so
No, I understand that. I get that a lot.
so Daphne, tell me your story. Tell me how you got into how you met Ken, and just like what interests you about the trades.
So, when I was in middle school, 8th grade, we had a field trip to go to LCTI, which is Lehigh Career Technical Institute, which it's basically a trades second school, like something. But I ended up going there on a field trip, and then 9th grade year, we went through rotations going to that tech school. And the rotations, you get like 2 weeks of one class, and then you rotate 3 times. And I had like early care, auto tech, and plumbing. And when I left Ken's class, we always called him Coach, so I probably will reference him as Coach.
Oh, that's fine. You can call him Coach.
when I left his rotation, he basically told me, like, "You have a spot if you want it, just let me know." So then I went to my 3rd rotation, and I didn't really like them. They weren't that much hands-on, and they were more paper book, like, in the paper, on the computer, all that. I didn't really like that. I liked hands-on in the lab, experiencing different things. So then I ended up picking plumbing, and then I went to plumbing for 4 years, and then I started in the field my 10th grade year. I did a summer internship,
Oh,
and
wow.
then yeah,
That's
I've
cool.
been working since I was 15. So I did that, and then I worked for a different company than I was at now, and I started with Deluxe in 2020, which that was a little challenging because of COVID and everything, but I've been working at Deluxe Plumbing and Heating for 3 years now.
Oh, that's cool. That is quite the story. So it seems like, first off, I want to ask you why plumbing and not HVAC?
So I started off in plumbing because I didn't really, not that HVAC didn't interest me, it's just plumbing. I saw the fire, the sparks, all that, and I
Mhm,
was like, "I kinda wanna do this. This looks really cool." So then I went through coach's lab, and
mhm.
I'm actually, well, with this company now, with Deluxe Plumbing and Heating, Larry actually allows you to, like, try HVAC, electrical, anything like that. So right now I'm trying to focus on plumbing, and then I might venture off to HVAC or electrical. I'm kind of going to electrical at the moment, but I still got a year or two.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jen or not, but she's really active on Instagram and, YouTube, but, she also teaches students, and has a ton of youngsters that, um she has under her wings, and she says that's a roster for such a young baddie, talking about you because you've done a lot in such a short period of time, and she also says we'd be happy to have you over in HVAC. She's in the HVAC world, and she's right. I mean, it, we need plumbers just as much as we need HVAC people, but I that's where I grew up, was in the HVAC world, so I'm kind of partial to that side. I'm not as much of a fan as the plumbing, even though I own a plumbing company. It's one of those things where I'm so thankful that I have plumbers on my team because that's not my cup of tea, for sure. So, are you doing service work, new installation, retrofit? What's your role right now? Because you had to go through an apprenticeship program also, correct?
Yeah, so I'm technically still in my apprentice program.
Okay.
I'm going for my journeyman's in May. So I actually am in a service truck right now. So I am a plumbing service technician, and I basically do anything between like water heater installs, drain cleaning, anything like that.
Have you done, like, new construction or any retrofits?
I have done new construction. When we're slow and we don't have the
Uh-huh.
service work, we'll jump over to new construction.
Which one is your favorite?
I'd have to say plumbing service because I'm in the warmth.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point too. You don't
Yes.
have to worry about that being freezing cold. I didn't even think about that because 'cause you're way far up north from me. Jen, she's actually in Maine, so she's even further north than we are.
Oh,
I couldn't
wow.
imagine. Right? That's my reaction too. "Oh, no." Uh, so, um, I wanna throw you off a little bit, or change the topic a little bit. When you think of your childhood, what smell comes to your mind?
I'd have to say the smell that comes to my mind is when it rains and, like, the asphalt, the smell of the asphalt when it rains on, like, a
That
summer day.
steam. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you lived in South Georgia, that would be the bane of your existence because that that sign meant that it was about to be 1,000% humidity, and you're gonna be like not be able to breathe because it's gonna be sweltering hot. And
Oh no.
when we see the rain on the asphalt and it starts to steam up, that's when we're like, oh man, this is not gonna be good. Which is every afternoon in August.
Oh no. Yeah, we used to when that was going on, it would be like a nice warm day, and we'd always like dance in the rain.
Oh yeah, you sound a lot like my wife. That's funny. So tell me this: what is your favorite thing about the trades? Like what you're doing right now? Not any like. So I'm going to ask you also a second question of like what's your all time favorite thing that you've done, whether it's been in school or whatever. But like at the exact moment, like this current moment in time, what's your favorite thing that you're doing?
I'd say like my favorite thing is going to a customer's house and being able to like get them water or be able to like clear their drain. It's just like a satisfying thing to like help others, and like I'm kind of like a little bit of a people pleaser. So like
Yeah.
I definitely like helping others and being able to get them out of that tough situation when they don't know what to do. So like basically controlling the issue, calming down the customer, and then being able to get them back up and working.
Yeah, as a service technician, I think that's one of the best things about I think that's what draws people to being a service technician is the dopamine hit that you get from solving the problem, and you get to do that multiple times a day. And I think that like what you're saying really lines up with exactly the way that I think as well, because anytime I do an install, I am mentally exhausted by the end of the day, even though like an HVAC install shouldn't require a lot of mental work. But what I'm not getting is I'm not getting that dopamine hit of solving problems and being able to provide that satisfaction to the customer. I only get that like once or maybe twice on an install day. Whereas on a service day, if I'm, running, 3 or 4 calls, I get that more times than not. Hopefully, fingers crossed, as long as I don't piss off anybody on a
Yeah.
service call. I don't step through a ceiling or anything like that. Like, it's not a normal occurrence, but actually in the 20 something years that I was a service technician, but from the time I started being a service technician, I never once stepped through a ceiling until probably, I think it's been about a year ago. I stepped through my own ceiling,
Of course.
right? And it was right before I was about to have neck surgery too. So I broke my hand stepping through my own ceiling. It was just the way things go. Like I was so careful for so many years, and then I just step right through my own ceiling. Uh, um, uh, so thinking back to like school and everything else, because you've gone through a lot. Like what you've done in this short period of time is what some people like. I'm thinking of a guy right now who's in his late 20s and he's just starting his apprenticeship program. Like he's like teetered with it here and there. Like, so what you've experienced and you've gone through in high school and everything is a lot. What's been your favorite thing so far?
I'd have to say my favorite thing is like not doing the same thing every day, being able to like go to different jobs, experience different things, and like I'm never learning out of material to learn. I'm constantly learning. It's not like I hit a mental block or a physical block. Like I'm constantly changing and learning and keeping up to date with plumbing or even electrical or anything like that.
Hmm. The active learning aspect of it. Jen, so it's funny, Jen is commenting a lot over here. She's excited to hear your conversation. But one of the things that Jen said, she even said it a few minutes ago. It's not even right now, but what she says is still applicable to what you just mentioned is um, service mind baby is what she says. So you have very much a service mindset, and I agree with her 100% on that. She would like to know though, whenever you were growing up and when you were a kid, which I mean, I can say this now because I'm old. I think you still are a kid. You're a youngster in my world. The A very mature youngster. When you were growing up, though, what is it that you wanted to do when you
I
grew
actually
up?
When I was growing up, I actually wanted to be a baker. I wanted to, like, own my own baking business. I didn't wanna do anything with plumbing, and then I just went into high school for it, and then now I'm here.
Isn't it wild how that happens?
It is. It definitely is.
I went through high school knowing I was going to college and went to college. I was going for engineering, and then went to college for psychology. And now I and have two HVAC companies and a podcast, and I travel the country talking to people. And so it's wild. I don't do anything engineer related at all. Um, yeah, that is a really cool, like how things change. All right, so now I'm going to change the conversation a little bit because I know there's a lot of people who are curious about this. Um, and I ask technicians this all the time. What is the thing that you least like about anything that you've done?
I'd say I least like snaking, but I will do it, and it's not even the smell that gets me, it's just I've been to, like, so
Oh,
many
it's the
jobs.
smell for me. It's the smell and the look and, like, it's all of it. Pulling the snake out of the van, like, it's the entire process for me, so just so you know.
I don't mind that. I've actually, like, stuck my hand in drains before, that don't
Oh,
bother
please tell me
me.
you wear gloves. Do you
Oh,
wear gloves?
I do.
Okay, 'cause I know some guys who don't, and I'm like, "Mm-mm,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
buddy,
No.
nope."
I wear gloves, but sometimes the glove doesn't cover everything, so
Yeah, I
but
get it.
it's always, like, a break in a line or, like drain cleaning is, like, the simplest thing, but it can, like, go from, like, 1 to 10 real quick, especially with,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
break in the line or anything like that.
All of a sudden, you get a snake stuck, and you're like, "Oh, here we go."
Yeah, or it breaks. I've had that happen to me, like, last month. It was
Oh,
great.
yeah. Now, what did you do in that situation whenever it breaks? Like, how do you have that conversation with the homeowner?
So, luckily for me, he was very, like, laid back and relaxed, and I basically told him, like, step by step, like, "Hey, we're gonna try to get it out. I'm gonna try to look for a second access point. I'm gonna camera the sewer line. I'm gonna see where it broke, see if I can get it." And then we ended up actually cameraing it, and then we were able to put a retrieval head on the other snake, and then we sent it in, and we, like, basically snaked the retrieval head onto the old or the broken off coil and got it. We were able to pull it out, but
What
it's
broke
just
it off? Did it
mm,
get caught on, like, a root or something?
it just broke. This was for a laundry sink, so I was snaking it with the smaller coils,
Oh.
and it just broke. There was a lot of debris in it. It just
Mm.
hard to really say.
Yeah,
It could
laundry sinks are one of those catch-alls. Like, I if it's anything like my laundry sink, I actually had to clean it out, clean the drain line for my laundry sink the other day. There was, like, dried paint. There was, like, just if you could think of it, it's been down in that laundry sink. It's the craziest. Like, it's going to the septic tank just like everything else, but we're just gonna pour the most ridiculous things down the laundry sink for some reason.
Yep, that's usually what happens, and especially with going to, like, people that, like, do their shirts, like, designer shirts with the paint and all that. It's the worst. You
Yeah.
can never
Oh,
get
yeah.
it clear.
So let me ask you this. You're such a soft-spoken person, and when you go and you're talking to someone and you have to be the authority in the conversation, how does that work out whenever you're like, "Hey, I need to clean your drain," or, "I need to snake your drain, and this is what we're gonna do. If that doesn't work, then we're gonna have to do this, and there's a potential that we're gonna have to repipe this," and whenever I get into that conversation, especially in the HVAC world, in the plumbing world, I can't do it because I'm not a plumber by trade. I can't have that conversation necessarily. But in the HVAC world, like I've done it for so long that I know the potentials that could happen. Like we're going to try and do this, but it might turn into this, and it might snowball into this. But we're going to try with the least evasive options first. But I remember whenever I first started out many moons ago that I was very uncertain about it because I didn't know. Like, I didn't go through the trade program like you did, the apprenticeship program. Um, so there were things like some of the stuff I legit was learning on the job. And so like I would go to customers' homes and I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is the problem. And they're like, pretty sure? Because I'm paying you the same amount as if I was paying someone who has 20 years experience. I'm like, yes. And if it doesn't fix the problem, then I'll make sure we get it fixed for no charge or something to like that effect or whatever. How do you come in? How do you go into a home and you're like, all right, I'm pulling this beast of a snake machine out and I'm going to start snaking this thing. And how do you have that conversation with someone? And how does that make you feel as a person?
So I do have like a little bit of a customer service voice. So usually when I talk to them, I'll be like, so we have this going on. You have sewage coming out of your floor drain. And I took a look at your trap, and you don't have any water over the outlet of the trap, which your trap is basically a U bend, and it has two T's on each side, and it has an inlet and outlet. And sometimes the inlet is with the fresh air vent, or it's separate. So from what I'm looking at, I can tell you that the blockage is inside the house. So what we're going to do is we're going to try opening up a clean out. And if we can't get it from the clean out, then we're going to have to pull a toilet, which that is the worst case scenario. And then I'll just go through pricing and all that. I
Yeah.
do get a little bit of backlash, a little bit of, are you sure you got this? I do get like a lot of comments of, are you sure it's not heavy, or you do
How many
look really.
times do you want to throat chop somebody when they're like, you got that, hun? Like, yeah, I
I guess.
got that. I'm about to throw this toilet on top of your head, son.
Yeah, there is a lot about it, and I would say, like, when I'm uncomfortable with a situation, because I did have a few customers that, like, made me very uncomfortable, I would have a word with the office, and then I would just tell them, like, "Hey, we have another technician coming out. I have an emergency. I gotta go." So, I'd have to say it's very, like Larry would probably say in the podcast, it's, like, very family oriented. They
Yeah,
got your back, and then it's, like, back and forth.
gotcha. Yeah, that's Jen. Jen came down, and it was several ladies on this panel at the HVAC school symposium that was like 2 weeks ago now, down in Orlando, Florida, and I was able to sit on the panel and watch. And there, it was a women's panel about being in the trades, and one of the things that Jen in particular mentioned, is just so happens she's commenting on in the chat that uh, she and when you were saying what you were saying, like I instantly, like, I thought about the conversation that Jen brought up, was over educating yourself. That is like the ultimate, like, I got this. Like, I know more than you do. That's why you called me here. And the fact that I mean, you went right through it all. You could tell you're extremely educated in the world of plumbing and drain cleaning. So, I mean, I don't see why anybody would ever put up with any kind of a fuss at all. I mean, because I know plumbers, I know drain cleaners who, like, they got the snake put in their hand yesterday and they're in somebody's house, like that type of situation. You know what I mean? And you've obviously had tons and tons of training. So I feel like that confidence speaks volumes, and that the knowledge equals confidence. Would you agree with that, or?
I do agree.
Cool.
I
Thanks.
Yeah, I do agree with it, and it is harder because, like, even so, how our company is, it's a lot of tech students coming out, and I even train tech students that are still in high school and all that. So
Oh, that's cool.
it's it's very well awarding, but
Yeah.
we do get a lot of backlash on our age, and I actually got told by someone, if you wouldn't have drove here, I would have thought you were 12. I was like, oh.
Oh, okay. I don't know if this is a compliment or not.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
a lot of people in the world.
so there are very closed-minded individuals. who's given you the weirdest comment? Like what demographic? Like, was it an old white dude that just like, I know, sissy, or was it like a female was like, I think I want a guy doing this? Because I've heard that uh that can happen, or maybe it's heck, I don't know. Like I'm 100% curious about this because I love the fact that you have no fear and you're just jumping right in it, and you even brought people in. So correct me if I'm wrong in thinking this. You have students from high school do like ride-alongs with you, and y'all will go into customer's house?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. And then when you get there, they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, I got 2 little kids here, like, fixing my drain." That's the reaction that you got?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's like a 50-50 shot, but um older
How much of
women,
a satisfaction, though, would it be like, "Here we go, boom, got it." Like, these 2 little kids just fixed everything.
it's very satisfying, especially like proving them like we got this and we can do it. It's a lot, but
Yeah.
especially it's really funny, especially like after hours calls. So how after hours calls work is that we'll get like a dispatch on our phone, and then we call the customer and we'll say like we're coming out. 50% of the time I call and they're like, "Oh, you're the receptionist." "No, I'm the plumber. I'm coming out." I get that a
That's
lot.
cool. How do they act after you talk to them? How do you act, like, whenever, like, once you've walked into the door or walked in, like, knock on the door and they open it up and you're like, "Oh, you're not kidding. You're not the receptionist. You are the plumber." Like, like, I feel like crap now because I was talking to you the way I was." How do you react?
I usually say it's like, "All right, like I'm just here to take a look at your problem," and then we go from there. Majority of like the women, they'll be happy. They'll talk to me. "How did you get into it? It's amazing. We need more women in the field." And then sometimes the older generation, like men and all that, sometimes they get like, "Oh, I was expecting a guy to come out," or they'll follow me and they'll like hover over, which
Oh, yeah.
it's completely okay, but it gets
No,
like,
that's not okay. Like, that's I get it, you're okay with it, but it's not okay because
yeah,
that definitely is, we have, I mean, as a guy, we'll have people do that too, especially engineers. Like, that's the ones that give me the hardest time. We go out on a job and they're the hoverers, and they're like, "Oh, you're not, what you're doing's not like nothing hard about what you're doing." Like, "Okay, well, why'd you call me then? Like,
yes,
you got this, you do it." But you can't say that, but you just kind of
yeah,
think that.
the yeah, all the time.
I cut you off earlier. You were going to say something. I can't remember what it was. Older women, I think it's what you, older ladies.
Oh yeah, older ladies, they get like ecstatic. They love it when I show up, and it's just amazing. And especially like when they're like a grandma figure, they'll always like, "Oh, you need anything? Do you need like a drink or anything?" Like they're so loving and like they welcome me in like all the time.
Oh man, that's the best. I had this one, and we were changing out all of her air conditioning units in her house because it was just a weird situation. She bought a house and the air conditioning units didn't work when she bought the house, but she moved in thinking they did work, and she lived in a neighborhood that had an SOS and an HOA, and they told her she couldn't put window units in. We gave her window units, and they were like, "You have to put the window units in the back of the house. You can't see them from the road." She's like, "No, I'm not. I'm putting them in the front um, of the house," and because that's where my bedroom's at. And um, it was hilarious because we changed out all 3 air conditioning units in the period of like 2 days, I think it was. But we had like several crews over there trying to knock it out for her because this lady happened to be a very, very famous chef. and in Savannah, and like world famous, has TV shows like possibly with the last name of Dean. And so she makes very good fried chicken. And the whole time we're there, when I say whole time, in the morning when we got there, she cooked us breakfast. At lunchtime, she cooked us fried chicken. And then we're leaving for the day. She made a dinner meal for us to take home. We're like, we can't do this. We're never going to get this job done. Like, you're just going to keep giving us all this stuff. Like, we're not going to be worth anything because you're feeding us fried chicken and mashed potatoes for lunch. Like, we're going to pass out in the attic. Like, you can't do all this. And I think there was, well, the first day there was like 4 guys. The second day, I think there ended up being like 6 or 8 guys because they all heard about what happened on day 1. So they're like, we're coming over for lunch too. But yeah, she was an absolute hoot. I've had a couple of experiences where they're like, we want to give you cookies and stuff like that, but nothing like her. She's like, I just love baking and I don't have anybody to bake for. So I was like, okay. But, so we are wrapping up on our time. Like the chat bar is going crazy over here between Jen and Everett, talking all kinds of things. Throw out some flux capacitor. Oh yeah, Everett. Yeah, talking about flux capacitors whenever an engineer comes on board. But I really appreciate you hanging out with me and let me ask you the tough questions and how you've experienced things. And huge shout out to Larry because like I remember talking to Larry it's been a long time ago, many moons ago, but he mentioned that they are very like a family atmosphere, and they like brought in a lot of trainees and they bring in people from tech schools and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people that say that, but like to hear your aspect, your version of it, and like you even talking about you having high school students ride along with you, that's really cool. Like that's not something that's super prevalent around here anyways. And I appreciate you sharing that story. I appreciate Larry. And I appreciate Larry allowing you to spend some time this morning doing this versus going snaking drains and pulling toilets and stuff.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I hope you have a wonderful day. If anybody's listening to this episode, I will put all the contact information, like the Larry's podcast episode, in the show notes as well. Daphne, do you have a LinkedIn profile? I don't know if I even looked up.
I do not, but
yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I've been giving everyone my Instagram because I kind of like converted it to like a plumbing Instagram.
Okay, that's what's up.
Yeah, it started with American Plumber Stories. So.
Oh yeah. I seen the post. I seen their blog post. That was really cool. What's your Instagram handle?
It is ziggy.g. Oh wait. Gotta. It is ziggy.dgz.
Okay. All right. And I'll make sure I put that in the show notes too. Cool. I appreciate you hanging out with us. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you again. I want to learn more as things progress, and maybe next year, maybe 6 months, see how things are going. Thank you again for hanging out with us.
Thank you again too.
Uh-huh.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit servicebusinessmastery.com